Glory finished their season on a high with a win against Wellington. Taggart and Dalton, the toast of the town at the MGP Awards, and an Italian giant set to return to Western Australia. All that and more coming up. This is the Far Post Perth podcast presented by ID Athletic. For all your merchandise, all your screen printing, all your kit requirements, whatever you may need in that department, head over to idathletic.com. And of course, our good friends Dino Djurbic and the team at Trio Homes. If you're looking to build, redesign or renovate, visit triohomes.com.au. Blaine Treadgold is my name. With me on this episode, James Renton's back. Welcome back.
Thank you, Blaine.
We've got Jackson Bassett with us.
Finally got to the end of the season.
We did, mate. We did. And I think we're a little bit better for it. And special guest from the Perth Football Podcast, commentator for Football Western Sport FM, man about town and everything else, Mr. Tommy Doleman's with us. Welcome, mate.
Evening, Blaine. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no worries at all. I think everyone knows the drill by now. It is episode 27 for the season, boys. Can you believe that? No, we're going great guns as we push towards the back end of what has been a pretty good season as far as the podcasting goes. So we will get going with our good, our bad, and our ugly, not for the week, gentlemen, but for the Perth Glory season. Now, I specifically said I want you to just think a bit creatively about this, because I know we could all go bad on the same things and we can all go ugly on the same things. But James, kick us off, mate.
I think for me the good, I'll split it into two, but it's sort of similar. For one, the implementation of and the development of the young guys like Jalen Pearman, Adriana Labib, Zach Lizalewski and Adam Bulgaria, I think has been a positive. I think it's been particularly pleasing to see Pearman and Labib being two West Australian products that have come through the NPL to perform as consistently as they have done, to get a lot of clubs looking at them. And obviously Pearman's going to QPR, and you've got Labib who's being looked at, I believe, by RB Salzburg. I think Stan confirmed that leading into the Auckland game. So, it shows that we've got some good young players that are coming through and getting moves to Europe. And also we've got some guys that could possibly make that step next season if they can perform well. And then on the other side of it, for as much as there was poor performances from a lot of the senior players, I think guys like Tomislav Merchela, Nicholas Pennington, Luke Amos, and the MGP, Adam Taggart, I think largely for about 90% of the season or 95% of the season, I think they were very consistent with their performances and tried and showed that they cared and put in a standard of performance that hopefully whoever's involved in the squad next season can maintain to a consistent and ideally even better level for next season.
Just on the young players, and I look at this kind of two ways. The good is producing these players. Over the last couple of years, this has been a really, really bright patch of producing players that have come through, being picked up from by overseas teams, and we can go on the likes of what we have now with Pearman, Labib getting looked at, and Nasmo with that, kind of loan to buy almost scenario. But then even go back to your Kristen Ells, your James Overys, your Daniel Bennies, your Robbie Cooks and these kind. So the previous regime with a lot of these guys developed this talent to a great level, and a lot of credit has to go to guys like John Gibson and Richard Garcia and Chris Coyne and Ruben Zatkovich when they were in that kind of role in the academy and everything else. But geez, the bad side of it is we have really failed to capitalise in monetary terms on a lot of this talent.
Well, not even just that. It's like the young players have, particularly for Pearman and Labib, they've succeeded this season despite the environment being crap. Imagine what we could have seen, not just this season, but in previous seasons, particularly during COVID, where we had an influx of young players into the team. If we had a better, stable environment for them, how many more players could have possibly performed better and not been under too much pressure and probably not crumbled? Because maybe it's a bit harsh, but maybe some of them did crumble under the bright lights and the pressure. Some did perform, but I think that's going to be a really critical thing heading into next season. If we can get a stable and good environment, I think that's going to really help the young guys overall. And
I think to your point about monetising some of these players a little bit better, Blaine, because the talent pool certainly doesn't lie, and we might come onto it a little bit more when we talk about the NPL shortly. But I think this is where we need to get to as a league in terms of this domestic transfer system and what's eventually going to happen, because a lot of clubs around the A-Leagues, their forte, per want of a better phrase, is producing talent. We see it in Newcastle. We see it on the Central Coast as well. And that is the way for these clubs to have that liquidity and to actually make the most of actually cashing in and then using those resources to either improve your facilities and then to maybe bring in some better players into your first team squad and all these various factors. And for me, that's why this domestic transfer system is such a key thing, because once you implement that properly and you bring it in, then suddenly clubs are more incentivized to give 3-year contracts to young players and show that faith in them, because then you are going to get a fee that's worthwhile because they are under contract and they're not running out or they're not on a scholarship deal and can be prized away easily for next to nothing, as we've seen in a few cases recently.
We will talk a little bit about that youth development side of things, mate. Jackson, what's been good over the past 6 to 7 months?
Well, I agree with James that the young players on the field and their emergence has been probably the biggest highlight. Luckily, I did have a second option, and I think the fans deserve a pat on the back. I was looking at the average attendance for the year. Taking away the Unite round game, which was technically our home game, we had an average attendance of just under 6,400, up 7% from last year. And I think all of the members and supporters who turned out this season deserve a big round of applause, because it's been a tough watch for most of the year, especially in the first 4 or 5 months. So I think the fans deserve credit for sticking tough and staying with the team in these tough times. And if you're getting 6,400 on a bad year, if the team improves next year and can play a bit more attacking and a more attractive brand of football, then you could be getting up towards the 5-figure mark, which is what Auckland has seen this season, which I think every team should be aspiring for. Absolutely.
We had a better average attendance than Melbourne City.
Yeah.
To just put a bit of perspective on that, Melbourne City, they've played a fairly, maybe not been the most exciting, but they've with the facilities that they've got, with the players that they produce and the football that they can play, you would have thought more would have gone out to watch them. Yet we are getting more crowds despite having one of our worst seasons on record. So I think, there's definitely a loyal fan base there that's desperate to see Perth Glory play. And even with the 11,000 that came to watch us against Melbourne Victory, yes, there were 5,000 free tickets, but I think there is an appetite within the Perth footballing community to see a successful Perth Glory.
This is why I get a little bit funny about people go, well, the ultimate thing to attract people to your games is to win. Melbourne City has been very successful in their period as Melbourne City.
Yeah.
That doesn't translate to connection.
They're very artificial.
They feel very artificial, and it's the whole CFG thing, and we go on about that a little bit, but it doesn't translate. Another example of that would be Parramatta Power in the NSL.
Yeah.
They were brought in, they picked the best of the NSL, they brought players back from overseas, they were very successful in their own right for a couple of seasons, but the crowds, people didn't flock to them.
But Perth, correct me if I'm wrong, but when Glory first started in the NSL, it's a little bit before Jackson and my time, but there was a bit of it would be right to say that there was an attachment to community. There was a need
hugely.
And that's the thing.
95% came from the first division or the NPL.
And that's the thing. There was that community feel, and if the club can improve that, especially over the off season, and again, that's another reason why perhaps we could see an improvement in the crowds for next season.
Tommy, carry on with your good, mate. You've been sitting in the stands up there in the commentary box with me a lot of the Glory home season, at least, mate. What's stood out as good?
Well, Jackson sort of stole my one with a fan, so I'll pivot a little bit and I'll maybe just give a bit of a shout out to Gareth and the team at the Glory and in the event staff and that as well, because they have tried to do some things this year with they had the band playing in one of the matches. Well, I can't remember which one it was, the Deanies. They've had the pyro, they've had the fireworks. Gareth does some great content as well, some really cool series in terms of getting to know the players and various things like that. So I think the club are really trying to get that platform out and to try and build that connection. And there's a few other things in and around the community that they've been doing in terms of getting players out to clubs and things like that, hosting training sessions and things like that. So there's been a lot of conversation over the years about that connection to the local leagues, but I think the Glory are taking the right steps towards that off the field, even if they're not entirely there 100%. And I think that should be commended that they are going in that direction.
Yeah, I also had the crowds, over 6,000, as you suggest there, Jackson, in in average attendance, which was up on last year. Yeah, I mean, I think it's got to be applauded, and it's got to be recognised by the club that the core is there. The core is there. The core hasn't gone away, and there are people that it re-emphasises what we've been banging on about is there's people in the community that deeply care about this club and where they want it to go. And that's something that I think in just about everything the club does, that needs to be fully recognised. So, that's where I'll take that. All right, let's get into the juicy stuff, James. What's been bad?
The complete botching of the squad this season. We brought in a head coach that had a very distinct style of play, having modelled that, learning under Ralph Rangnick. And obviously, in hindsight, there's been a lot of thoughts about David Drilish, and I've been fairly, outspoken with some of my thoughts.
Have you?
Yes, I've been very outspoken. I've been quite animated at times on this podcast about David Drilish. But
I didn't notice.
No, but I think he was set up to fail by the way in which the squad was composed in terms of profile, in terms of experience, in terms of cohesion. I mean, Zrilla was right in saying that it's not normal to be going through 35 or 36 players in a season, and there's a clear correlation between the better sides using less players and tending to perform well because they can build that chemistry and cohesion. For us, we got it wrong with our visas. We put too much of an emphasis on young guys that were getting thrown into the deep end, and they just couldn't handle it at that time. So I think there's got to be a premium placed with our squad composition for next season if we want to have a genuine attempt of making the finals, that we've got to get it right in terms of the balance of the squad, in terms of the age, in terms of the profile, in terms of the experience. And so it's critical that Stan Lazaridis in particular gets that right.
Jackson, keep us rolling, mate. What's been bad?
I'll be a bit more specific on the squad and look at the initial visa signings that came in. You can argue, there's been arguments all throughout the years about the worst imports that have come into the league. But when you look at that collective that came in, Hamzawi, Aoyama, Kanga and Caicedo, when you look at the game time they got and their impact on the squad, that's probably one of the worst collection of imports that's the A-League has ever seen. I mean, Kanga and Caicedo were out before the new year. Aoyama got one more game in the new year in February. And then Hamzawi's been featuring sporadically, and when we've seen him play, he hasn't set the world on fire. I think, James' point earlier, the recruitment was botched right from the beginning, especially with those four. And absolutely, they need to get it right next season because it's just not going to be tolerated again if that's the level of players that are coming in, and that's the sort of impact we're going to see from them. Yeah, it just can't happen.
Tommy, keep us rolling, mate.
Ties it a little bit with what James and Jackson have just said.
Yep.
But this is a bit of a trend for me with my bad and my ugly over the past few seasons. I'm going with slow starts.
Yeah,
they're
that's
an
a big
absolute killer to the season. They fly completely in the face of what you're trying to sell to your supporters and to try and get them on board for a journey. I've done a few numbers on this. So cumulatively over the past 4 seasons, we've had 5 wins in the first 8 games. Combined in each of the first 8 games of the last 4 seasons. So 32 games, 5 wins. And that is winless in 8 this year, pre-December when we beat Brisbane, 1 win in 8 last year, 1 win in 5 pre-World Cup break in 22-23. Then it was 2 and 8 after, and 2 and 8 in 21-22, albeit the mitigation that year was it was a semi-COVID season. So I guess the question for me is how do we address the slow starts and hit the ground running early? And for me, I'm going to be very interested to see how the club operates in the off-season. I've got another point coming up on that for my ugly as well, but I want to see intent. I want to see a good pre-season scheduled. I want to see the new signings, visa or otherwise, in nice and early, and let's get them gelling early. Let's get that chemistry on the pitch from the very off so that we're not chasing tail and we're finding that out a month or 2 into the season. And I'm kind of in the camp for the reasons that James outlined, where I give Zulic a little bit of a pass for this season and the ownership too. That's not to say that there shouldn't be a strong review because it just simply wasn't good enough this season. It was incredibly disappointing. But by the same token, you can't just keep chopping and changing a coach. It was the ownership's first off season. There was ducks to get in order after acquiring the club, as we all know. And also, there were some things which happened during the tax story which came out on the West. So that was bound to be unsettling. But at some point, you've got to try and stick with something, particularly in rebuild mode. Otherwise, you just go into rebuild after rebuild. after rebuild, and that cycle will continue forever. So for me, back the coach early in the preseason, let the coach have the signings he wants, be positive but be realistic to the supporters and communicate often and balance that with KPIs of progress and various other things. And I think intent is the word I want to see from Glory this offseason. I understand financially the razzle-dazzle signings and the next Mo Salahs might not be attainable, but let's just give the players, the coach, everybody at the Glory who works hard off the field the chance to make it a successful season coming up, so that if push comes to shove, there are no excuses, because quite simply the fans deserve better than coming into a season yet again with hope only to see it evaporate 2 or 3 weeks into the campaign. And I've heard a lot of excuses as well, just to finish, on players being underdone and so on last season.
That won't fly next season.
It does not wash with me, because we had 7 lead-up games, 2 against the Jets as well, if you want to include A-League opposition, plus the 3 Australia Cup ties. That's 10 games. That's the most games we've had since 1920 in a pre-season when you factor in the COVID years. And when you factor in the year before when we had 6 plus the West Ham game, which was essentially an exhibition game with a completely different squad. So different with the Australia Cup being played next week, so slightly different to recent years. But I just think let's go out with a bit of intent next year and let's make it a lot better so that we can actually sell some hope to the supporters. And that was very long-winded, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay, mate. My bads, and I'm going to give this a little bit of context. I was fortunate enough to be at the MGP Awards last night. Great night, plenty of people there. Mood was pretty good, all things considered. It was rightly so. Good opportunity to celebrate the individual performances more so than the teams. However, there was a real sense in both Adam Taggart's speech with Clint Wilden once he took out the men's MGP. A little bit of a write-up on the West with Ben Smith about that. But last night, Anthony Radic addressed the MGP Awards, and I felt that was a bit of a line in the sand moment, and I'm paraphrasing here, but in enough words, there was a suggestion that anyone within the club who's not there for the right reasons, anyone who's not going to put in the hard yards, pretty much has to find another employer. It was a real line in the sand moment for me. The feeling that I got, though, was that it was months too late.
Yeah.
That was the only thing. But I congratulated Anthony on coming out and him being so honest in that, and I appreciated as a fan, putting my fan cap on, I appreciated those sentiments coming out. But this is where my bad actually comes in, is that the PR around the whole club this year and dealing with the bad situations hasn't been great. In many ways, they've dug themselves a deeper hole. And we start off with the naivety going into the season. I know we've gone through this ad nauseum, but the wow signings, we're going to be up here this year. This is what we're going to do. We're going to be fantastic. We're going to be back. Glory's back and everything else like that.
Yep.
It gives you one option if it doesn't work out, and that is falling very, very short and being perceived as a failure. And we've got to be really honest. The season was a failure. Yep. It was totally oversold and underdelivered. As far as the season went, and that's an area that I think needs some real improvement is the PR. They would have been better off saying, look, let us get our feet under our desk. This is going to be a season that we're not really sure where we're going to go, everything else like that. And look, hey, if they had made the finals, won a few games, whatever else, everyone goes in really, really pleasantly surprised. So
Can I play devil's advocate and just ask a question?
Yeah.
But after the form that they showed in the Australia Cup where they got through to the round of 16, I know they lost to Moreton Bay, but they did have a couple of good wins in the territory, and then they had the good win in the territory, and then they beat Melbourne City. Do you think that they did feel a little bit entitled to have some optimism, even if it was a little bit sort of pie in the sky going into the year?
Yeah, because we were seeing something that was being promised, so to speak. We were seeing David's brand of football in that Red Bull sort of press and that intensity. And I think the fans at Sam Kerr that saw the City game were like, wow, this is different. And the young players did stand up. The problem was we just didn't have the foresight to think, is this going to carry over into the A-League season? And clearly we got caught with our pants down. So I think there was that initial reason to think, okay, we're doing well, but I think we were drinking our own bathwater a bit too much.
There was more opportunities and earlier opportunities to come out and recognise where things were going wrong far earlier than what they came out and did. Yep. That's the point that I'm probably making. they could have come out at round 5 and said, look, we probably got a little bit ahead of ourselves. This is going to be a tough season. We probably, and I think majority of the fans would have taken that on board. I mean, the fans aren't stupid. They understand where the club is at. They understand that there's a new ownership. Majority of the fans, to use one of your phrases, Tommy, know that the next Mo Salah is not going to rock up at any stage. It's going to be a little bit of a process to be able to get through. And, there's, as self-admittedly, and everyone from the outside looking in knows that there was a lot that needed to be processed that was taken on from the last regime, so on and so forth. However, now there has been that line in the sand. I'm glad there is. I'm glad Anthony Radic came out with that last night. And there's no excuses moving forward. This will be David Zrilic and Stan Latterides' squad moving forward. They haven't inherited much at all. They have almost a full clean slate.
But they sort of did, though, in the sense of when they started the season, albeit of what they inherited.
They did, but going into next season, it will be their squad.
We did have close to 15 or something players leave.
Correct.
So Correct. I think, but definitely there should be more, I would like to think, resources to spend on what as close to ideal, I guess, as we can.
Keep us going with the ugly, mate.
I'm sort of going to piggyback on what was said before, but I think next season we've got to be really careful with what our strategies is going to be, what our goals are going to be, and we need to be specific
on field
in particular, and we need to be specific as to how we plan to achieve them and have those KPIs so that the fans can measure progress. And I think that was a big problem this season because all we did have was the comment from Ross saying going to see a totally different club in 12 months' time, and Stan Latterides saying if we're having the same conversation this time next year and we're not successful and we're not doing the things that I promised, then I won't be here, thereby implying that if we're not successful, then he won't be in his position. Those were the only KPIs that we had to measure progress. I think we've got to be if they said this is going to be an ugly season, but a necessary season for us to grow as a club, to get out of the rot that we've been in, then I think fans, maybe not initially, but reluctantly would have accepted things moving forward. And I think because of the lofty expectations that were set and the lack of any real strategy behind them, the results that we saw for me were the ugly. The fact that we were just so off the pace as early as round 1, how we got underdone by MacArthur badly. The Melbourne City game, I can't recall an atmosphere at HBF Park where the fans just turned from the club singing "We've got the ball" or "We've lost the ball." I've not heard anything like that in a very long time. Maybe the salary cap days is probably the last time I can recall. But yeah, I think there needs to be a very clear and strategic approach to next season, and we need to be specific as best as we can as to what we want to do and how we're going to look to go about it.
Well, priority number 1 for me, and this is my ugly for this season, is just the defense overall. We conceded 69 goals under Stadge, and then this season, conceded the most goals in the league with 56. And I think the attack's been just as bad, lowest amount of goals in the league. But when I'm looking at those two individually, I think defense has got to be the number 1 thing that we sort out first. Mainly because I look at the teams where they finished this season. 5 of them scored over 50 goals. They finished 3rd, 4th, 6th, 7th, and 8th. 4 teams conceded under 40 goals. They finished 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 5th. So that clearly tells me that if you have got your defense sorted and you're not conceding goals, then you have a really good chance of making the finals and being right up there pointy end of the season. So I think that has got to be the thing that they concentrate on most. They said it was going to be sorted for this season, and they did improve. I mean, 13 less goals conceded, but to still have the most in the league and over 2 a game, it's not going to fly. It's not going to be accepted again. And if they can get that right and get some good signings in, which, there's already been talk about good signings in, and Stan's already made comments about it, then, that's got to be the area that we focus on. Get defense right and we'll be good.
Tommy?
I should have checked my notes against Jackson's before I came on the pod. Sorry, Tommy. He's nicked me again here. I actually had a quiz question, and I know this is a little bit trite given we've had a clean sheet and a road win. How many goals do you think the Glory have conceded in the last 5 seasons since 2020-21? 131 games, I think, off the top of my head.
And I'm all right in saying that Ollie Sales conceded half of them.
Yeah, I might be a bit outlandish, but I would think somewhere in the range of 150 to 200.
No, I was going to say 300.
258.
Oh, my God.
So So this is not a David Zrilich thing or an Alan Stajic thing. This has been a complete lack of a defensive identity for a number of years now, and for a period of time, to the point now where we need a complete shift to get the club back on track and looking upwards. Because when this kind of seeps into your identity, and we've seen it so many times this season. Somebody makes a mistake, whether it's playing out from the back, goalkeeper makes a fumble, whatever, and the heads go down, and that's something which is ingrained into the way that you play. And to sort of expand on Jackson's point a little bit, I know the goals against column's not the be all and end all, but we've had the lowest ranked defenses in each of the past 2 seasons. It was 9th the season before that, bottom the season before that, and 9th before that. And XG's not the be all and end all either, and people aren't the biggest fans of that, but Glory have finished in the bottom 4 of the XG, of the expected goals against in the past 5 seasons as well. So the numbers do correlate that just defensively, they're just simply not good enough. And that's what has to change going forward. But I can't believe in 5 seasons that it's just all the players, because so many have come in and gone out the door, as James has said. We had 15 players depart and more come in. So what is it? Is this tactics? Is it structure?
Well, the irony is, though, is that we had a coach in Tony Popovich that was, I don't want to say anal about it, but was completely laser focused on attention to detail and where you should be standing and your positioning and defending, and that sort of attention to how we should function as a team from a defensive perspective. I don't know what the coaches since then have done from that point of view, but I think there should be, to your point, there should be a bit more of a premium put towards being a good defensive team, being hard to beat, and then let the attack do the talking.
Have a look at some of the players as well from those 2 different eras.
Oh.
Dino Djurbic, Shane Lowry, Alex Grant, Jason Davidson,
Ivan Franich,
and then we've got now Tomislav Michelis in both camps, obviously. Josh Risdon is there now, but obviously he's come back a different player, I feel, than possibly, definitely than what he left.
Yeah.
But the frustrating thing, though, Blaine, is we've got Callum Majekadumi, we've got Andriano Labid, we've got Josh Risdon at the moment. We've got players who should be able to play in a betterly configured defensive system than what's currently being put out at the moment.
But I don't think it's just in the back 4. I think it's the whole mindset of the team that we've not been good with our pressing this season. We've been too open, and we've not been able to defend our box, which isn't just for me, the back 4. It's on the whole team, and I don't think there's been enough of a desire to win games, period.
Well, until Amos came in, there was no protection for the back 4 at all, and people were just running through like a knife through butter, and just the back 4 were just...
It was ridiculous.
Completely...
Well, I think the last one out and out in that kind of 6 was Kilkenny.
One day mopping things up.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that structure and that foundation is essentially what you need, because then David Zrilich can press intelligently. You can try to play a little bit of Red Bull football when you are wanting to attack. You can try and play ambitious counter-attacking football if you have that solid platform to do so. You can't do that when your defence is leaky and frail. So, simply... Really, for the goals have to stop going in for Glory to improve. That's as Jackson's right. That has to be the number 1 focus this season. And funnily enough, the last 3 weeks, a 4-1 win over Adelaide, a 1-0 loss to Auckland, a 2-0 win at Wellington, and the other 2 wins this season were 1-0 at Brisbane and 1-0 at home to Auckland. So there's your blueprint right there.
Do you know what the irony is? This season, we've kept the 4th most clean sheets.
Yeah, there you go. Well,
we've kept 5 clean sheets this season.
There you go. Boys, my ugly, and I kind of blew my own powder earlier, and that was just around the recruitment and the player management. Inputs failed. We spoke about the failure to sell on younger players such as Pearman and those kind of guys. And I guess just to add it to point, where we need to be is we need young Western Australian footballers to see Perth Glory as that first professional step to go on to greater things. Like, that needs to be the focus. We want your next player that's coming through the NPL to see that. Hey, if I want to go into bigger and better things, I need to get into that Perth Glory senior side. And we don't see that at the moment. We see them often leave earlier. The amount of guys that have gone into bigger and better things that have barely, and we've spoken about this before, pulled on the purple shirt. Alistair Carty is probably the prime example. Yeah. Kristen L played limited minutes. James Overy didn't. Robbie Cook didn't. So there's a few in there, but that's where ultimately those young players need to land. Well, we need those young players to want to land for the good of the Perth Glory Football Club.
And then we need the environment to help them.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the club has to show faith in them as well, as I said before.
Yeah,
and that's another thing, is that you have to have a coach which aligns with the values of the academy if you are going to lean on progressing these players through into the senior team.
The thing is, Zrilla's background is youth academy. If the AFC qualifications were going to be recognised by UEFA, he would have had his own under 19s team.
I think in that side of things, I mean, don't get me wrong, Majeka Dunmi was in and out, kind of seemingly fell out of favour a couple of times. He was open about Jalen Pearman not being solid enough against some bigger bodies. Adriana Labib, he started off, kind of went and kind of came back in and had some really good games before he got injured. So it's there. It's just about how you manage these young players. I mean, Jalen Pearman was totally and utterly mismanaged. He was dropped off the books, for goodness sake. Anyone who'd watch a second of Perth Glory at NPL level,
he was a standout.
He was the standout. So, I mean, that's something else that we'll talk about. In fact, what we might do is we might take a quick break and, we'll dive into a few other things right after this. You're on the Far Post Perth podcast.
Tired of the same old cookie-cutter home designs? Dreaming of a space that truly reflects you? Then it's time to talk to the team at Trio Homes. Whether you're looking to build your dream home, redesign your current space, or simply renovate, Trio Homes is committed to unique designs, local personalised service and quality workmanship. And with former Perth Glory star Dino Julbich at the helm, you'll know you're getting passion and dedication built into every project. Discover the difference with Trio Homes. Visit triohomes.com.au.
What a run! This could be the one! It's in! That's what it's all about! And when it comes to sports gear that helps you perform your best, ID Athletic has the winning formula. From grassroots clubs to elite athletes, ID Athletic provides high-quality sporting apparel, screen printing, embroidery, and made-to-order promotional products. Proud sponsors of the Far Post Perth and passionate supporters of WA community sport. Visit ID Athletic at 84 Howe Street, Osborne Park, or online at idathletic.com. ID Athletic. Build your identity.
Welcome back to the Far Post Perth podcast. Blaine Treadgold, James Renton, Jackson Bassett with special guest Tommy Doleman from the Perth Football Podcast. And, of course, we all know Tommy as, pretty much the sound of WA football. If you do hear a bit of commentary, 99% of the time it's likely to be Tommy. So, mate, thanks for giving us a few minutes, of course. But big season for the NPL so far. It's a good time that I think many of us kind of transition out of A-League mode. We start to see what's happening. We look for our football fix a little bit more locally. And, the season thus far has kicked off. We're 8 rounds in, I think, going in this weekend. And, how do you sum it all up? Let's start with the men's competition so far.
It's an interesting season because we've already seen some segregation form in the top of the NPLWA men's competition. You've got Bayswater City, who have kind of been the tease of the last 4 or 5 seasons. They've had stacked squads, but it's almost felt like they've just tried to jam their attacking players into a configuration rather than actually picking a system and letting the players fit into it. And the change of coaches has worked wonders, and their formation looks a lot more streamlined, and the players just suit the system. And they've started 6 from 6. And they've got Olympic Kingsway this week and the defending champions. I'll be on the call for that one for Football West, and I can't wait to get up there to the northern suburbs. It's going to be an absolute beauty. And if you can get up there, go and have a look at it for sure. So no surprise to see Kingsway in the top 4 as well, given their treble winning heroics last season, and the fact they've been able to replace the goals of Liam Boland and Joe Knowles pretty seamlessly is a real positive and a credit to the coaching staff there. But I'm sure you probably want to talk a little bit more about the Glory and Perth, who are probably a bit surprising considering the pre-season predictions for many.
Go,
I was
James.
just going to ask, do you reckon, based on what we've seen so far, and I know we're sort of making an extrapolation off of a very small sample size, but do you think the academy side for Perth Glory, do you think it can sustain the performances that they have done so far? Because they seem to have started off much better than they have done, I would probably say, in previous years, in the way in which they've won some of their games to start this season.
I think the way they've won the games is your point that stands out best, James. It's an interesting one for me with the Glory because this version of the Glory team, I'd say yes. But last season, the Glory had won their first two and then they drew their next two and they were unbeaten after 4 games and look where they finished up in the relegation playoff. And we often find that the senior players come into the side at the back end of the season, at the start of the season while the back end of the A-League season's on, just to keep their legs tuning and everything like that. Then there's a bit of a dip in the middle and then some of the A-League players come back for pre-season and they get a little bit of a run late in the campaign. What I will tell you about the Glory this season, though, is they've already surpassed last season's points tally in the space of 6 games. They've got 16 points on the board, and they only got 14 last season when they finished in the relegation playoff spot. So I think the key to them is that this season there's a little bit more depth, and that depth is because they're kind of in the second year of there was a bit of a rebuilding phase last season. A lot of younger players from the 18s and 20s stepped up, and you're starting to see a lot of these players like Daniel Jankulowski, like Tadawinashe Kazamba, Giovanni Deabru, who I think is one of the stars of the future in the team, really good holding midfielder who's trained at Bayern Munich, I understand. A few others as well, like Alfie Knight, Gavin Knight's son, who I think is going to be a real star of the future too. And I think
Maxi Naylor.
Yeah, and I just think that depth and that experience of last season have served them better. So let's see how far they can go. I think they are playing a little bit more directly as well this season, and that's a theme with the Football West Academy on the women's side as well. Previous years, they've tried to sort of play that perfect passing football, but it's a little bit more direct, and the speed of these young players, they're really using that to their advantage a lot more, I feel.
Something that we've talked about, Tommy, particularly with these academy sides is, and I think as a whole, I think all of the academies, no matter it's Perth Glory, no matter it's with the lower levels at, number of different clubs or whether it's the NTC program, there's a lot more maturity in the players now at these younger levels than there once was. I remember having specific conversations with you, and once upon a time, especially at Perth Glory, these young lads, there was a fair few moments of panic. Oh my God, there's someone bigger than me coming at me. There was a bit of fear involved. There was right, let's just do whatever we can with this loose ball and hoof it as long as we can. Now there's some real maturity. There's some, hey, let's play football.
Bit of confidence.
Yeah, bit of confidence. Yeah. And they've come a long way, these type of academies, haven't they?
They have. I think the situation with the Glory is a little bit different, though, because what we've seen in the previous few seasons is a lot of the players, how do I say this politely? They're very attack-minded. So a lot of the Glory players in the academy are playing at under 13s, 14s, 15s, 16s level, and they're used to winning 8, 9, 10-0 every week, finishing at the top of the league, and not necessarily being challenged as often as maybe they should. And then when they do eventually get to men's level, in inverted commas, they maybe struggle a little bit to deal with the physicality, or maybe to deal with a different angle, or maybe having to defend. I mean, we've seen central attacking midfielders play as holding midfielders for their passing ability, because Glory at that level have 90% of the ball, and there's no point having a holding midfielder in the team. And it's the same with holding midfielders playing centre back. You have your ball players at the back, whereas perhaps we've lacked those traditional defenders, but it looks as though it's coming back the other way with the likes of Majekadumi, Labib, Jankulowski, who I rate really highly, and the 2 Argent boys as well, and Kazamba, who I think is one of the next ones off the track as well. So it's really interesting, because that maturity is a really good thing in one way, because they are in that atmosphere and they are in that academy from a young age. But I think there's still ways in which we can tweak the system a little bit so that we can give them as many different experiences as possible through their development that we can.
I wanted to talk about this new system while we're on Perth Glory. There was a lot of discussions over the last 12 to 18 months about maybe some of the negative unintentional kind of consequences of having that previous system of a full junior academy, basically picking the best of the bunch across WA, as you said, leading to some big score lines. Other clubs were going without their talent, which was making for pretty uncompetitive kind of games, and that's no good for anyone. No one learns anything. You don't learn anything from winning 20-0. You don't learn anything from losing 20-0. But now the shift towards this more train on at JDL level, rather than taking the best of the bunch at that level from the rest relevant clubs. And it's something that we spoke about, and we were quite blunt about it, getting to a certain point and basically just getting spat out of the system. And you're going to have to go back and find an NPL club now, maybe a club that you've had no affiliation with to begin with. How does this new system sit with you? And I guess how long do you feel it might take till we start to see the benefits of it?
I don't know if it's really going to take time because you've already got the players in the system to begin with, and the best ones are already there, and the best ones will stay and they will remain in the academy, and they will hopefully go on to play A-League football for Glory in the future. Your point's right, and I think that's what a lot of the clubs struggle with, is that they do a lot of work in developing players from the age of, say, 8, 9, 10, 11, and then they sort of go into the Glory Academy at a younger... Some of them have gone into the Glory Academy at a younger age, and then it's not quite worked out for them. And then they might be in a situation where their experience, or they've not quite been good enough, but they've come back and they don't really want to maybe associate with Glory again. Or perhaps you have players in the NPL at junior levels who come up against the Glory. They might lose 11 or 12-0 on the weekend, and there might be some animosity or something like that. And then they go, well, we maybe don't... want to go and watch the Glory at A-League level. Mm-hmm. It's possibly putting 2 and 2 together and getting 5, but I'm sure that does happen. So I think the move to go to this structure is a good thing. That's just my take on a personal level. But it's a little bit of a step back to the past, because this was the way the old Future Glory used to work, was just to train on scenario. So you'd have your clubs, your 12 or 10 or 12 clubs, and they'd train during the week, and then the pick of the bunch would go and spend another 2 days training with the Glory, and they were the ones who the Glory used to pick from.
Yeah, well, that's probably what it should be, in the sense of having that train-on environment, rather than saying, well, we're going to take you, period, and then sort of I don't know, ruin other clubs' relationships with Glory.
Well, essentially that's what happened, and this is what they're trying to mend.
And clearly there's a lot of talent within the NPL that are not just at Glory, but are in different sectors of it, and I think the idea of going towards that, we want you to train with us and be immersed in that elite, well, not elite, but that ideally that top performance environment, so that if you can perform well within your respective clubs, then we will take you. And I guess that in the future should hopefully lead towards better relationships, I would like to think.
Yeah, and I think the ultimate thing for young players, and we see it all around the world, is playing games of football. And that is the ointment that you really need as a player to grow and develop and play your trade. There's no point going into an academy and training for 5-6 days a week and then getting 5 minutes a week. You're just not going to go anywhere. It doesn't matter whether you've got the skills of name any top 5 world footballer. If you can't get on the pitch because somebody's got your spot and is preferred to suit the system, then so be it. So, I think if we can keep young players at their junior clubs, and particularly at places where they feel comfortable, they've got good relationships with their existing coaches, their friends are there as well, which is super important as well from a mental health standpoint at a young age as well, to be playing with your mates and to be enjoying the game and to be really sort of flourishing in a good environment. And then, as James says, if there's extracurricular training that you can do in whatever academy, in whatever format, be it the Glory or be it elsewhere, then that's the cream on the top, and that's what's going to get you to that next level idea.
Just to add, though, the accessibility, if you're a 15-year-old lad finishing school and you got to go from Joondalup up to the Sam Kerr Football Centre or something like that, it's not ideal at all. You'd rather be playing locally, surely.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
There's just those little logistical things as well, Jackson.
Yeah, just looking at the league at the moment, you got 4 teams who have kind of escaped from the rest, and talked about all this young talent coming through. How does the quality of the league compare to years gone by?
I think it's getting better all the time, and I think what you're starting to see is a lot of these players from this generation of the academy that we've just been speaking about filtering back into the competition, and they're growing, they're learning. Some of them have come back as well. They might have gone to Victoria or to New South Wales. They've come back. I think of Jaden Gorman, for example, and he's signed with Olympic Kingsway, made a very good start there, and he's got a bit of a point to prove. And we've also seen some experienced pros, the likes of Liam Reddy, Neil Kilkenny, a few others as well, who have sort of joined the league as well, and they've added that little bit of extra class and currency that perhaps we didn't quite see as much of, say, 5 or even more years ago. So, look, I mean, you're always going to get a biased opinion from me because I love the NPL. I've been covering it for 7 or 8 years. I've been very lucky enough to do so. And I love the stories. I love the narratives. There's so many little rivalries and little spot fires around the place, and it's just great to go to the clubs and meet the people, meet the players, because I just genuinely think there's so much good stuff that happens, not just in the NPL men's and women's side, but also lower down in those state leagues as well. There's some good stories, some good teams, some good clubs who all have things to share, and I think the quality is a little bit better than what we maybe perceive it to be from a narrative standpoint.
How do you think we can look to enhance that moving forward? I know that's a bit of an abstract question, and there's obviously a lot of elements to it, and it's not just like there's a simple answer towards it, but if there's probably maybe one or two areas that you would like to see implemented moving forward to try and enhance it, what would be some ideal strategies or implementations that you'd like to see?
It's a tricky one, isn't it? Because a lot of this is predicated on finance at the semi-professional level, and the wages that players get for playing are just higher over East, and so you're ultimately in a difficult situation off the bat straight away in terms of retaining your best players, and then the fact that there's only one professional club here in WA compared to multiple over East. If you want to go and put yourself in the shop window, that's just the logic. There's more professional clubs there. There's more scouts. There's more people that are going to be bound to be watching you on a weekend. I think what can help is the clubs enhancing their profile, and I've spoken to Blaine about this. I think Perth have done a really good job in recent times with their social media. Yeah. They do the podcast as well. Red Star with Robbie Anderson up there do a tremendous job as well. And I think you're seeing some clubs like Fremantle City who've really upped their game as well in that department. Balcatta are starting to come to the fore as well. And I think all of that promotion and all of that effort, it makes a massive difference because
gives that awareness. Would that be right?
Well, it gives that awareness to the local community that there is something happening for a start. So if you are at a loss on a Sunday afternoon, you can go and watch the local women's game, or if you have girls and boys that are your children playing in the teams, you can stay for the first team game, and you can sort of build that community, build that atmosphere, and it makes a massive difference as well for people with their families to see their kids scoring a goal online, or seeing a little highlights package of the kids having a 2-1 win because they can send it to Nan and to Grandad over in the UK. And so all of these little things help, I think, from a promotion and standpoint. But to go back to the bottom line, this all kind of costs not just money, but it costs time as well. And I think a lot of clubs do struggle for volunteers, and I think a lot of clubs do struggle for people to sort of contribute in ways out of their own time, and obviously then from a financial standpoint in terms of just general facilities and players, you're always chasing the tail anyway to begin with.
Tommy, I wanted to talk about the women's side of the game and give that a little bit of airtime as well, because, I mean, obviously I'm pretty open about my affiliation with Perth, and I'm very, very proud to be affiliated with a club that tries its darndest to give as much into the women's program as what it does. It's men's. And there's plenty of clubs out there that do that. However, there's plenty of clubs that don't, that probably haven't caught up to that. And there was a little bit, and I think Neil put it down a few months ago, there was a bit of a flavour of the month that clubs can virtually use implementing a women's program to go towards seeing the attraction to get funding for facilities and everything else like that. And that's a real negative way to look at it, but it is a reality in it. How do you see where the women's game's going, not only on the field, but obviously when we start to look towards funding facilities, which has been a bit of a crusade that many of us have been on for a long time?
Well, they can never be enough funding and facilities, and that's partly down to the clubs to lobby and to get into the ears of their local politicians and things like that to support female sport, in particular with regards to female-friendly change rooms and various other things. I've only really been covering the NPLWA women's competition since it formed in 2020. I wasn't really familiar with the Women's State League before that, so I don't quite know the ins and outs of that side of it as much, and I've perhaps not been in the game for as long as somebody like a Neil Bennett or some people who have sort of been in and around the game for longer. But what I will say about the NPLWA women's competition is the first 2 years of it were completely buckled by COVID in 2020 and 2021. So considering that the NPL was formed in New South Wales and Victoria pre-COVID, we're still kind of in this embryonic phase with the local competition here on the women's level. And these things do take a little bit of time, as much as people don't really want to. They want the sugar hit and they want to go from go to woe straight away, and they want everything to be perfect. There are a lot of clubs in the lower, I won't say the lower leagues, but in the second tier, which is currently the Women's League Division 1, such as Sorrento, such as Mandurah, who are really looking to, they've got the facilities already, and they're really looking to put steps in to enhance their female side of their program and hopefully get promoted to the NPL should they finish top of the league or earn the right to promotion via a playoff or whatever it is at the end of the season. And I think that's only a good thing, and I think that's only going to continue to grow and continue to improve. You're seeing the likes of Perth really come to the party. As you will well know, Blaine, the Football West Academy, previously the NTC, always churn out players. You've got a club like Red Star, formerly of the Redbacks, who have this amazing culture in women's football. Murdoch University Melville sort of came in off the back of a largely, I guess, dominant Queen's Park playing list, which went to Mum FC originally. They won the first 2 league titles, and then it's kind of disbanded a little bit from there. And Queen's Park is a little bit of a sad one, I suppose, for a lot of people, albeit that was pre-women's era. But look, I think the improvements are happening all the time at that level. Clubs are still getting up to speed. We obviously had the issues with Curtin University a couple of years ago where that was a pretty poor situation, and they conceded over 100 goals and lost every single game and didn't register a point. But
is the talent pool big enough, Tommy, at the moment to be able to have a fully fledged semi-professional league at NPL level?
I think it's getting there. I think it's a very young league.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of young players who are
finding their feet,
and without wanting to sort of ride it home too much, these things do take time. Not everybody has that established women's fulcrum, for want of a better phrase, like Red Star / Redbacks of the past, or a Balcatta, who have been very predominant in the women's game. They were one of the pioneers of it in the sort of 90s, I understand, along with Redbacks, and do have that history. And Fremantle City and Subiaco, they have sides in the NPL Women's WA Women's competition, of course, but they have a multitude of female players and teams. They don't just have the NPL side or the reserves. Yeah. They have amateur sides. They have plenty of different teams, masters sides as well, which they can call upon as well, and offer different types of football to different female players depending on what they want. So, yeah, it's going to take time. It is still a relatively young league with relatively young players. Hopefully we can just keep as many of them here for as long as possible.
I'm pretty sure I asked Kelechi this when he was on the podcast, but I'll put it to you as well. You mentioned some of the young talent coming through in the NPL men's. Who are the players you've got your eyes on at the NPLW level who could really stand out and take that next step, and who we could see in the Glorious ALW side?
I suppose the obvious ones come from the academy side at the moment, who are really who've made that terrific start to the season. They're top of the league. They lost at the weekend to Perth in the top of the table clash, but you look at somebody like a Claudia Houlis, who's really escalated her game this season, wearing the captain's armband. Rotendo Kazamba, central midfielder, young player who I think's got a lot of potential as well. And the one I think is potentially going to be one of the next cabs off the rank on the women's side is Theodora Muthius. She's just been away with the junior Matildas on a training camp, and she just arrived back last weekend, so was unavailable for the game at the weekend. But they definitely missed her, but she's a little bit of a maverick sort of number 10 playmaker who can really sort of get in between the lines and do some fun stuff on the ball. So I think from the academy side of things, they're always going to be producing players, but because it's such a young league as well, you get some players as well at Perth, such as your Daisy McAllisters, who have been consistently excellent for the past couple of seasons. Olivia Wood of Red Star as well, the 2 years before that, phenomenal campaign, scoring double figures also. And I think the fact that the players are still relatively young at NPLWA women's level means that they still do have opportunities to maybe test themselves at a higher level if they do want to, because they're young enough, or maybe even go overseas and do college in America or something like that and try their hand there.
Tommy, you're a big advocate, mate. And just one final one before we let you go. Mate, people who are looking to go down there and might be a little bit curious about attending, it might be their local NPL club. It might be State League. I mean, they might be more affiliated to a State League club, mate. What would you say about getting down there and some of the things that they might experience?
I'd just say go and support your local club. It doesn't matter whether it's men's, women's, NPL, State League, Division 1, amateurs, whatever it is. Just go and support your local club. if you have the time and the ability to help out, to volunteer, to do a little bit of something that's going to support your club and help them, be it raise a little bit of revenue or help with that little bit of sustainability going forward, it's really important. So that's the number one thing I would say. And if you can't do that, then just if you are at a bit of a loss in the off season of the A-League, go down and watch a local game because they're really good fun, particularly those evening matches under the lights. You can go and have a beer and you can go and you can just go and watch some really good entertaining football, and we've seen plenty of that. So it certainly won't disappoint you, I promise you that.
I guess in the cost of living crisis, and we're all kind of scrounging for some coins, I mean, it is an affordable night out. It is. I mean, you get in for a tenner, you can go down there and get make a couple of beers and a burger, and you can take the kids, and there's usually a bit of space for the kids to run around and everything else like that. So it really is a good day out for a Saturday afternoon or even a night fixture, Tommy. So, get out there and support it. Mate, thank you very much for giving us a few minutes. Very much appreciated.
You're kicking me out now.
Oh, you want to keep going, do you? Well, you might as well stick around for the next part.
If you want.
This is the Far Post Perth podcast featuring Blaine Treadgold, James Renton, Jackson Bassett, and Tommy Doleman. Back after this.
Tired of the same old cookie cutter home designs? Dreaming of a space that truly reflects you? Then it's time to talk to the team at Trio Homes. Whether you're looking to build your dream home, redesign your current space, or simply renovate, Trio Homes is committed to unique designs, local personalised service, and quality workmanship. And with former Perth Glory star Dino Julbich at the helm, you'll know you're getting passion and dedication built into every project. Discover the difference with Trio Homes. Visit triohomes.com.au.
What a run! This could be the one! It's in! That's what it's all about! And when it comes to sports gear that helps you perform your best, ID Athletic has the winning formula. From grassroots clubs to elite athletes, ID Athletic provides high-quality sporting apparel, screen printing, embroidery, and made-to-order promotional products. Proud sponsors of the Far Post Perth and passionate supporters of WA community sport. Visit ID Athletic at 84 Howe Street, Osborne Park, or online at idathletic.com. ID Athletic. Build your identity.
Final part of the Far Post Perth podcast. Gentlemen, let's have a bit of a look at what's happening a little bit locally, then we'll get stuck into what we can expect across the finals in the A-League. We did, Tommy's still with us, so we did speak a little bit about the NPL men's. I won't go through every single result, but I can let you know that Bayswater sit top. Perth Glory second, Olympic Kingsway in third, Perth in fourth, and then a bit of a gap to Armidale, Sorrento, Stirling, Macedonia, Fremantle City, Perth Red Star, Western Knights, Balcatta, Etna, and Floreat Athena, who might be in a little bit of a strife. Just looking ahead to the weekend, Perth Western Knights, Armidale, no, that can't be right. I'll come back to that. You have got, Jackson, you've got Australia Cup, which is played across the weekend, but we've got the draw for the next round as well.
Do you want me to go through the results?
Yeah, well, just go with the next round of fixtures if you like. We know who's left.
Oh, I've not got the fixtures in front of me.
Go.
Tommy, you
I've got them in my head.
Photographic memory.
Stirling have been drawn to play Western Knights and the other quarterfinal on that side of the bracket is Bayswater versus Inglewood. And then the winners of those two games will be one semi-final. And then the other side of the draw is Balcatta versus Mom FC of the second tier and Olympic Kingsway versus Subiaco. And the winners of those two will be the semi-finalists on that side of the bracket. I know you love brackets, Blaine.
Can't stand brackets. There's no point. Stop it. Stop ruining it. Just draw it just week by week. That's it. That's all you need to
nonsense.
do. Hey?
After work nonsense.
Game's gone. Game's gone. NPL men's, I have got the fixtures here. Perth will be up against Western Knights, Friday night football at Dorrien Gardens, Balcatta v Sorrento. Really important match for those two. Armidale, they need to get something out of Perth or they really start to risk losing touch with that top four. Olympic Kingsway, Bayswater City, you can hear Tommy Doleman on that call on Saturday afternoon. That is probably pick of the round if you ask anyone around the traps. Fremantle City against Perth Red Star and Stirling in desperate need of some points against Floreat Athena, who's also in desperate need of some points as well. As far as the women, very quickly, I'll bring this up. There we go. Good old Scotty's working for me. This weekend, we will see Perth will take on Fremantle City at Dorrien Gardens, Balcatta against the NTC, or Football West Academy as it's now known, Perth Red Star against UWA Netherlands, and Subiaco against Mum FC. So there you go, a little bit of what's happening locally. Gents, we've got the A-League Women's. We've got the second leg of the semi-finals. I say it every week, but I really like this two-legged semi-final system. Melbourne Victory, they're up against Adelaide United in the second leg. Currently hold a 3-1 aggregate lead. And Melbourne City against Central Coast. There is that's a tasty one because they go into that at 2-2. So
I think it'll be a Melbourne Derby final.
Well, I think it will be, but I mean, I think you've got to tip your lid to Central Coast to kind of keep it all even and head into it because away goals don't count. So
that's true. I think they missed a great opportunity though at home to not get something more from that first
against Melbourne City. Though I mean,
tough ask, but you're not going to get any better chance than they would have had at home.
And there's a lot of pressure on City as well, given the season they've had to actually see it through now and to get that title over the line in the finals.
Absolutely. Boys, we can go around the table and get some quick tips. A-League Men's Eliminations Final. These are two really good games, particularly the second one. But let's start. Western United up against Adelaide United, all to play for. Is this one at Amy or is it out there?
Tarneet, I think.
Is it Tarneet?
I think it's only the higher risk games, I think, with some security reasons.
I'm happy that it's out there at Tarneet. That makes sense to me.
West United for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't matter where it's being played. I think Western United got this one in the bag.
I tend to agree, but I do think Adelaide are a sneaky chance. I think they've kind of been written off a little bit in recent weeks, and I still think they've showed enough signs throughout the year that they can get it back now that the season's done and the finals are on focus.
Yeah, I can. Who do I think is going to win that?
Calvert to go out with a toilet seat.
Yeah, I don't think so. But Adelaide United can just go balls to the wall, can't they? They've got nothing to lose. Everyone expects them to lose anyway. So, yeah. But I think Western United probably too strong. This is a beauty, boys. Western Sydney v Melbourne Victory elimination at Parramatta. Prime time on Paramount. Saturday night.
Should be a big crowd.
Should be a massive crowd.
I think Wanderers should win this one.
I think Wanderers choke. I think Victory go through.
Ooh. Tommy?
Wanderers, I'm more certain about this semi-final than I am the other, to be honest, as weird as that sounds. Reckon? Yeah, wow. I'm pretty confident on the Wanderers. I like what they've done back into the season.
Stadge has done...
I probably am.
Stadge has done really, really well with this. Really interesting. So just to let you know, the lowest winner will play Auckland and the highest winner will play City. So it's not set. It can still cross over if it needs to. So the lowest winner currently would be Adelaide United if they get through.
Nice bracket, isn't it, Blaine?
Don't get me started, Tom. Don't get me started. Boys, final predictions, nonsense predictions, anything that we might expect this week. I'm going to go with Parramatta to sell out for Wanderers against Victory, and I'm going to go with a fair bit of carnage on the field. These two sides hate each other.
Juan Mata to get the winner.
Woo! Jackson.
Ibasuki scores a hat-trick against his old team.
Oof. I'll go Bayswater to go 7 from 7 and really lay down the marker as the title favourite if they're not already.
All right. Matty Sparrow to get it done. All right. There we go. Hey, big thank you to ID Athletic. Big thank you to Trio Homes. Big thank you to James Renton, Jackson Bassett, and Tommy Doleman for jumping on board. This has been the Far Post Perth podcast. Make sure you tell everyone about the podcast. Jump on there, give us a bit of a review, rating Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and of course YouTube Music. And we'll catch you next time for more here on the Far Post Perth podcast.